Hey, how's everything going? Let's do it to it. Alrighty. Oops, I gotta make a new study. This is Honest Check. I appreciate your patience waiting while I get this in. Let me make sure I have Honest Check spelled correctly. Perfect. Okay, remember we're talking about space, basically smothering your opponent with space. This is what we're basically talking about. And we're going to be able to see how that works. There's actually the 4-pawn phoenix. This is the 4-pawn attack. This is like incredibly, you're all in at this point. There's also this, the Shamish variation, but he went for just the normal rear attack, rear defense. So castles. There should be 2. Orthodox variation, wow. A5. Bishop E3. Knight G4. Bishop G5. F6. And then Bishop C1. Knight H6. And then C takes D. Or no, D takes E, and then F takes E. And then C5 exclam here. Honest Check is trying to get a lockdown on the position. There's one or two things that he can be doing. One is, if the pawn were to take, then this E5 pawn becomes weakness. So it's a weakening of black's pawns. And 2, this opens up a queen to B3 check. And if this light square bishop ever moves, the pawn will fall to this beautiful attack. The pawn advance is a thematic, very strong idea in the King's Indian defense. The move not only vacates the C square for the white light squared bishop, but it also attempts to capture on D6 and leaves black with either an isolated E-pawn if black recaptures with the queen or knight, or a backward D-pawn if he recaptures with the C-pawn. C5 nicely illustrates the creation of weak pawn squares. It doesn't expect them. It didn't expect them just to basically magically appear. So C5 on this move here nicely illustrates the creation of weak pawn squares. So weak pawn squares. So weak pawns slash squares. Don't expect them to just magically appear. So don't expect them to just magically appear on the board. It took me a second to get that in there. I wanted to make sure I read it right. Knight F7. This is Peters points out that c-take leads to a clear white advantage. So this right here leads to a clear white advantage. With bishop check, king h8, queen takes, rook takes, bishop g5, rook f8, knight takes, bishop takes, bishop takes the knight, rook e8, and then castle queenside. And this leads to a huge advantage for white. So honest check doesn't fall for that. He just develops. You know what? Why relieve the tension? Make your opponent do that. Knight c6, castles, bishop e6, and now c takes d5 or d6. The idea, I think now this actually can be held here because of bringing the knight back to f7. That one threat is no longer able to be played. The knight takes because it's covered twice. So he's kind of really forced at this point to take. Queen takes is probably a little better, but white has a superior game, better structure with little to no counterplay for black in any case. Queen d2, and then h6. The idea of queen e2 is white wants to potentially get the queen in here and go for checkmate. This also connects the rooks and prepares for a knight infiltration into basically d5. So that's the idea, and this tries to stop that, but it creates a weakness. So fd1. Now the idea is if this knight ever moves, the pawn on d6 falls. So rook e8, rook ac1. So all the rooks, white dominates the open c file and the open half open d file. Rook to e2. And then in comes the knight. There we go. Rook d7 here. This is so that the queen can actually move now. And then h3. This gives a king of flight square. And then the ability to, if need be, play g4, g5, and undermine the pawn on h6. King h7. Excuse me. Bishop c6, c3. Now there's kind of a there's a trick that could eventually come into play here. Queen e8. This covers the bishop because I'm thinking if like something like rook challenges there, this actually could be played at this point here. And now you're attacking the bishop here. You're attacking these two rooks. So even if rook was played here, you still have this type of a setup. And then bishop takes, queen takes, and then rook takes, and you're up in exchange. And if let's say that, so we don't lose anything, we'll just say, I know this, well, let me see here, delete, we'll say this here. Okay, now this potentially can happen, and if at that point, now you have an attack on these 2 points, and then this is attacked. It's just a mess. So it's a mess. That's why the queen had to move over. Black's pawn on d6 and e5 are smothering their own pieces. While White's central forces have basically the absolute space. As wonderful as White's position is, d6 is solidly defended, and no instantly decisive blows can be found. So instant. Thus, White decides to further constrict Black's position by grabbing queenside space too. This will quickly prove to be more than Black already can sustain. Defenders can only handle, basically Black's not going to be able to defend both points. The theory of 2 weaknesses will kick in, and b4 is what was played here, and this is a sclam move. White demands queenside space. F d8. Hastening the end of queen d8. Holds out the queen d8 holds out no longer, but this is a passive construction and sparsely not a good position here. Would retain completely hopeless. Basically, so let me reread that. I'm going to try to get all the words correctly. Sorry, but I appreciate your patience on this. Hastening the end of basically queen d8. So move 21 potentially, rather than the knight going to here, the queen could have went here. So that's kind of what they're talking about here. Holds out long. This holds out longer. That's what he's saying. But his passivity and structurally spatial defective position would remain completely hopeless. So basically, the position is defective. This is the best way to hold, but it's passive and losing. So he tries to hold stuff together a different way. So b5, more space, more. This obviously strong move was almost likely played immediately. With this example, which explains how he missed bishop takes h6. This actually is winning on the spot. I was wondering about this move, because this actually picks up a lot of material here. And wins a pawn, since bishop takes d and bishop takes g, bishop takes c, and then the queen h6 is mate. So if takes here, bishop takes, then knight to f6, check. If the king moves here, queen check, and then the knight takes. And I believe, are we up in material? I'm not sure if we are. Thinking that that's actually a better move. Not queen takes h6. This is a better move. So king back here. Yeah, so that's why this was obviously played really fast. So bishop takes d, and then e takes. Queen takes is actually a better continuation. it's bishop to e2. Oh, I gotcha. Not this here. I gotcha. Queen f3 was actually better here. Bishop e2. Knight e7. b6. Bishop takes. He takes. Knight f5. Queen to a5 exclam. This actually will win a pawn here. Knight takes e6, pawn takes, f takes e3, e4, and then knight to g5, double exclam. This is a really strong move. And the reason is, after this, I think queen takes is a double exclam. I was looking at this. This is a double exclam as well. This picks up a whole entire rook. And there's no way to stop the queening. And this move, if you're wondering why this was an exclam, this shatters the pawn structure of black, and then delivers this move here. And a new queen will be born, and you're up actually in exchange here. So that's an incredible continuation. It'd be hard to see over the board, but still, it's an incredible continuation. Knight b knight to e7 isn't as good because of b6 again. E, knight h2. There's no queen to a5 here, so that double exclam idea doesn't work anymore. A takes b. Hey, how you doing? Bishop to b5 is completely lost for black here, because he's going to lose an exchange. So b6 now, and we're just trying to Alexander honest check actually is just demanding space after space here. a6 to shut the position down, but now you got, as I like to say, a bone in the throat. Bishop b3. Now you have this sweet move that could potentially come in. Rook c7 with rook d1 to c1, and now you're just dominating everything, and that's just a killer move. Queen f7. Oh, rook c8. Ouch. And white's central and queen side space advantage, and the difference in piece activity that resulted in made a win. This made a win for white, because what is black really gonna do here? He's so cramped. He can't move the knight, can't move the rook. Everything's just cramped. Maybe they can play on. I'm trying to think. I think this is just absolutely win. Made his grandmaster strength opponent look not so well in this position. The lack of space has brought many great players to their knees. That's what Jeremy Silman says. In the honest check Peter game, black's pieces were smothered by the lack of space. In a way, I remember, it reminds me of a oh, this was the Volkswagen bug that a lot of people would they try to see how many people can get in a Volkswagen at one time, and that's kind of what Jeremy Silman says it reminded him of in this game right here, that type of memory that he remembers some individuals trying to do. You slowly but steadily. I always think of a boa constrictor. They slowly just take the air out from beneath you, and eventually you can't breathe anymore. And that's kind of what happened in this position. Honest check basically deprived his opponent of any breathing room, made their pieces horrible, and his opponent had nothing to do but resign, because you could potentially play on with like queen to f5, but is that really strong? Because you have rook d to c1. I really don't see it. I don't really see it. I don't. I know tigers would play on in this scenario. So being in the let me see. The idea of the spatial challenged side making a few exchanges so that his or her position remains some pieces down and have room to maneuver is usually in all stages of the game. Here's a typical opening example. So we're going to go into a typical opening example. Oops. Okay. Just give me a second here. Let me see. Space. Example. There we go. Space gaining example. So, oh no, maybe someday I'd like to. It would be fun to actually do that. That you could share your knowledge that you acquire. So it would be fun. So this is an example that Jeremy Silman is giving in Reassess Your Chess 4th edition of how space gaining actually is a vital part of chess. Let's see. Uh-oh, I had d5. It's e5, and then d5 here. e6. Knight c3. I did something wrong. Hold on. Let's see, c4, c5. Oh, that's the problem. I had e5. It's actually c5. D, and then okay. Now we got it. Now we got it. E takes, C takes. Okay. And then d6. e4, g6, f4. So this is a space gaining example. There, bishop b5, check. Knight f to, oops, wrong. Knight Knight fd7, a4, castles, knight f3, castles, oops, knight a5, a6, castles, knight b4, rook d1, and then a6. White to move and avoid exchanges. White enjoys much more central space. Note that black's light squared bishop is actually in the way of its own pieces. At the moment, white's light squared bishop is under attack and has to move. Bishop c4 has been played from time to time this year. But bishop f1 has also been played. Bishop f1 is recommended as correctly. Why? Because bishop c4 gives black time to free his bishop and trade it off. So knight here would attack the bishop, and then if bishop e2, bishop g4. And when black's forces will have more room to move, as in this was a game, and it was Watson versus Nunn. So bishop f1 avoids this, and then if knight f6, h3, and this is an exclam move here, because if you're looking at it, no bishop can be exchanged. Yes, you retrieve your bishop back, but remember, it's not the end of the world. When black is forced to continue to basically suffer from a certain amount of cramped space. The idea that the side with more territory should avoid unnecessary exchanges might lead one to believe that space wouldn't be of much use in the endgame, since many exchanges would have been made to reach that stage. However, this simply isn't the case. This is a Kramnik game, so we're going to set up a position here, and we're going to show an endgame that has a lot of space being deprived by the opponent. Kramnik deprives his opponent of space. Oops, I think I need to move the pieces a little farther down here. Let me see. Is that, nope, a little further down, even further. Beautiful. Now we're on the right track. We got this. Huh? Well, there we go. We will get this one step at a time. Let me make sure I have everything. I appreciate your patience on waiting for me to get this set up. It's sometimes a little difficult. Oops, almost forgot the king. That would really be important, wouldn't it? Okay, perfect. Now we can turn this into a study. This is a Vladimir Kramnik. Let me make sure I have this right. There we go. Got that. Got that. Perfect. We are right as rain, white to move. Okay. Let's see that. White has an obvious advantage in space and two bishops. Though the position is rather closed, a situation that usually makes knights happy. Black's knights aren't doing much of anything due to the fact that they don't have access to any advanced points. D4 can't be reached and immediately jumps, and E5 allows white to basically take the the knight off the board. So if knight goes to E5 here, if the knight goes, the knight goes there, that gets chomped off the board, and there's no real way to take advantage of any of that. White is clearly better, but it will take time and patience to actually win this position. The knight plays knight to b1, but is Vladimir Kramnik's move, and that's a really, really, really nice move. I like it. A star move. The knight is heading to c3, where it stops Black's plan of knight to c7, followed by d6. The white knight also intends to continue on its route to potentially going to a4, and then basically paralyzing the other knight to guarding d6. So this is the kind of idea that the knight wants to get to. And then this will become a target, and Black would have to defend that target. And because the knight would go to c3 to knight to a4, and that would come under pressure. Will be frozen. Okay. Some players might ask, why is this a big deal? Since white's knight is on a4, will be frozen, as well as black's on d7. That's an absolute obvious. That's obvious. But there's a flaw. Once the knight reaches that face-off position, the d7 knight will need to protect, have to protect that from attack by white's light squared bishop. Let's see here. What is that? Let me see. So it reaches that face-on position. The d7 knight will need to be protected from attacks by the light squared bishop. Gotcha. Thus, Black's once active plan of d6 to d5 won't work, since e takes would allow bishop to h3, forcing the win of the b6 pawn. What's all this mean is that Black now can find himself in a situation we've seen before. No space, passive pieces, no play, and little hope. Basically, the idea is, if the knight tries here, the knight would come here. We'll just say the king comes there, the knight will come here, and if this move gets kind of pushed, takes, and then you can actually play bishop h3. If this gets played, you take here, and that loses a piece. So the knight would have to actually move, and then therefore this bishop would come in and attack that knight. And if the knight tries that, then actually at the point of this moving, this pawn falls, so that's even better. So so here, and then you can actually take there, and the pawn push here, and there's no real way to stop the loss of d5. It's gonna come, so I've played there. Knight takes, bishop takes, pawn takes, and this is winning. These two pawns will outmaneuver this king. What about after this, and then bishop here, knight e5. Oh, I gotcha. I see what you're saying. Let's take a look at that. Well, bishop takes, knight e5, bishop would take at that point. Yeah, that's why that's why Jeremy Silman says that the idea of pushing d5 is over at that point, and if that ever happens, the position basically is lost. It's a lost position at that point, and that's kind of what rises in the position here. So bishop e7, Black's trying to activate the bishop. So we'll make this the main line. Knight e5 potentially could be played here. Bishop takes. Remember we talked about this actually fractures the pawns, and then knight to c3. And the idea is we're coming in and we're going to pick up this pawn. There's not enough time to win it. Knight d6. Knight there. Knight c. And bishop h3. King h7 and f4. And the idea is trying to undermine the position. G takes, and then push the pawn here. So like if the king can somehow get there and lock this down, then check, and this falls. So you can't do that. So let's take a look to see if we can't get our king in a different way. We'll see if we can't get our king in a different way. And then that falls. So it's like, So we kind of have to actually play that move. And then we can actually play, I think, e5 here if I'm not mistaken. And if you play there, you can actually pick up, but oops, wait a second. Let's take here first. Wrong takes, I have to take right. Then after takes, and then now you take there, and this becomes a bone in the throat of Black's camp. And then we just slowly move our king in, guarding that, or we could potentially even come up this way and try to go after the h-pawn, which would force total problems for Black. So that's why it'd be a clear advantage. So f4 here, taking more space and depriving Black's knights of any useful use of the e5 square. As we know from the chapter on knights, taking away advance points from the knight is a major part of the effective of anti-knight strategies. So f6, knight c3, and remember the idea, coming in there, as I like to say, coming in hot. Okay, king f7. And then knight to a5 exclam, and this is beautiful, really beautiful. King e7, and then d4, and this is now time to deprive everything. King d8. Other moves are even worse, like c takes d. Oops. So he takes D, bishop takes D, knight c5, bishop takes, b takes, and then e5 here. Bishop takes, king takes, f takes, king d7. I know what you're thinking. Why not just take here? Because this pawn falls and the knight can just barricade here, and these passed pawns will be a menace for black. So he has to hold there. King f3. Why not just gain spaces? Karpovian type of play. And then king here. And the knight endgame is 1 for white. This is a Karpov kind of position. Also, there's knight c7, and then e5, bishop takes, and then e takes d check, king takes, and then king takes g, which leaves black in bad shape. He points out, this was actually Kramnik's line that he pointed out, that c takes d4 leads to basically everything coming down. Knight c5 takes b6, and then e5, knight e4, f5, and basically the knight would come off the board, and you're in deep waters at that point. So d5, space grab, more space. It was funny, Vlad's really he's a balanced player, but he's positional as well, Vladimir Kramnik. d5 grabs even more space, and black's prison grows even smaller and smaller. Takes, then e takes. So if back here, if e5, then bishop to h3. Remember, the idea is we want to trade off this knight to win the pawn, so this move actually helps us. Okay, bishop here, and then king to f2. The knight can't move, because if the knight moves, the b pawn falls. So there's really no rush for white to take the knight. He can win that anytime he wants. White, this way it says, white does want to play bishop takes, and knight takes, but we want to wait on that. This could actually be played. I know what you're thinking. This could be played, but then bishop g4, king f2, knight to c7. You know, king a4 or knight a4, bishop d1, knight here, bishop b3. When you have more space, you want to use it, you know, and you want to cramp all of your opponent's counterplay. You don't want your opponent to even get a breath of air at that point. So that's why king f2 was played. Knight c6 or c7. Bishop to c1, h6, bishop to e6. So and black is still caged in and hopeless at this point. And so e takes, and then knight c7. Vlad gave this move here, and the same type of position here. Knight f8, and then king f2. And It's about equal, but I think white still stands better because of space. Bishop h3 threatens to win. Bishop takes d and win a pawn. Knight a7 or knight a8. Bishop e6. So the idea of winning the pawn isn't on the table anymore. But why not just cramp your opponent's position and basically squeeze them till there's nothing left. And then this is a really positional masterpiece move here. This makes the light square bishop really bad. It's like in a cage at this point. White's enormous. Partial pluses have taken an epic basically turn. In such a situation, basically the player doesn't have to know whether to, black doesn't know whether to kind of like go, oh man, or do I fight on? It's kind of like, do you really fight on in this position? Because you're in deep waters already. Bishop c8. King to f2. There's no reason to move this bishop. There's no reason to take the bishop. Everything is actually status quo good. Bishop d7. He's trying to get his bishop outside the pawn chain. g4 says, no go, sir. You're not going to be doing that. King e7. Because the idea would have been if something else were played, black wanted to play this and then play h5 and try to take a scope on this weak pawn on c4. Vlad cuts that out of the equation by g4. So black basically is again passive and just has to sit there and go through the agony of that. Knight takes, let me see here. Knight take, wait a second, what am I? g5. Oh, knight takes this here. Is an exclam move by black. Black had waited, white maybe got a little too comfortable. Avoiding that type of play. Stronger was actually, rather than g5, stronger was h5 here. Just keeping everything intact would have been a better idea. Just keeping the space. This allowed black to consolidate the position. And if bishop e8 here, then g takes, knight c3, knight d7, knight e4, knight e5, bishop takes, and then the recapture allows deadly pass pawn here. After this, the pass pawn will just start coming up the board. But this really takes away a lot of stuff. Bishop e8. Oops, not there. Takes. Black's position is good, but he has the opposite colored bishops, which is far from easy to win here. King e3, bishop g6, king d2, using the king to take care of the c4 pawn. However, knight c3 deserves some serious compensational ideas. This is an interesting move here. I think Jeremy Silma is right in this. This does have some type of play here. Okay, bishop to e4, bishop c1, bishop g2, king c3, bishop f1, bishop h6, kind of depriving the king of any space. And then bishop to g2 again, bishop f4, bishop f1, knight b2, knight c7, knight to d1, bishop g2, knight e3, bishop e4 to keep in contact with a potential sacrifice. Bishop here, knight to e8, king d2, knight c7, what am I missing here? Hold on. I messed something up here. Let me see. Hold on. 92. Bishop b4. Bishop h. Knight. King d. Oh, I got it. I know what my problem was. It's bishop f3. This was my problem here. It's bishop e4. And that's what threw a kink in the works. And White has been employing the usual cat and mouse strategy, hoping to wear down his opponent. Now Kramnik pointed out that bishop b1 followed by bishop to a2 was intending a defensive try. So bishop b1, he says this right here is an interesting idea, because with with a2 trying to defend and attack at the same time. King g3, bishop d3, king g4, threatening to play knight check, bishop takes. So like if the knight went here, check, bishop takes, king takes, with an easy win after bishop here. There's this type of a move, and then what'll happen is the knight's gonna have to move, and when the knight moves, this comes in, and there's really and now there's no moves, so the knight has to move, and then wham, that happens. Oops, let me see here. Oops, I have to promote this. G4, knight to E7. Let's see. Bishop takes doesn't hope to acquire anything because king takes. Knight c7. Bishop g. Knight there. Bishop h. And this is a Zugzwang's idea. So bishop f8. Bishop d3. Bishop e7. King c7. 92. King c8. King g4. King c7. Knight c5. Or g5, h5. Check. King h6. Back. h4. King c8. h5. King c7. Knight to g2. Exclam here. Because you're thinking, whoa, aren't you just giving up the pawn? King c8. If bishop takes the c4 pawn, I know you're thinking, wow, you just gave that up. Bishop takes d5. Knight f4. Bishop check. King g8. c4. King f7. c3. King takes. c2. Bishop d8 check. King b8. This is crazy. 92. Bishop f3. The knight c1. Bishop check. And then king e7, and the game's won. Wow, Kramnik actually saw this. That's crazy. That's a crazy move, man. Wow. Combination. Knight f4. Bishop c2. Now, instead of bishop takes, instead of black making a mistake and taking here, this would have been a mistake. Though white ends up winning anyways if like takes here. But why would you want, just play clean, play a clean game. Knight g6. Exclam here. H takes. H takes. F5. If bishop d3. G. Knight takes. King takes. Bishop takes C. And bishop takes D. Is easy to win as well. So g7. Knight takes, king takes, and king c7. If again bishop d3, bishop takes D, bishop takes, bishop f4 to barricade the pawn. Bishop takes B, king f8. The game is over at that point. King there, and then bishop d8. Check. Exclam. This is like the coup de grace move right here. King takes, and then king f2. f8 here. And if bishop, this is where his opponent resigned. In the white promotes his e-pawn, so it will stop here, and we'll put only move so that we know. If this move here, the pawn promotes. There's no way to get the bishop back in time. There's no way to get the bishop back, and so you can even do that. Okay, we need to kind of sum up what we've learned here. I'll give you a teaser what's up. Dueling spatial pluses. So we're going to be looking at spatial moves that have like double ideas behind them, so we can see even more and more and more. Excuse me. One second. Swallowed around there. Let me get a drink. Okay, better. Okay, the whole idea here is we've learned how space grabbing, and you don't want to trade. If you start grabbing space in a position, you want to hold off trading your own pieces. If you're the one with the space, you want to make you want to keep it and slowly but steadily gain, and eventually your opponent will either lash out and play a bad move, and you'll end up getting a superior position. Or what'll happen is you'll just keep gaining space and eventually get a superior position. Either way, that happens. And as we've seen here, it even applies in endgame plays. That Kramnik showed how you can have not a lot of pieces on the board, 3 pieces and a lot of pawns, and still be able to cramp your opponent's position. So it's all about seeing far enough in the future, making sure that you know the techniques on how to, if you're the one with the space, how to handle it. And if you're the one with lack of space, you want to trade pieces off to free up your position. So that just we're going to be going over that section in a little bit too. If you're the person that has less space, how to handle it. Okay, with that, because we wrapped up on that. I wanted to thank you for all logging on, participating. You know what? We have to keep pushing forward, like what Bruce Lee says. You have to take what you know and be able to apply it. Be willing to do something with it. And remember, when it all comes down to a choice, and the choice to receive the Lord Jesus, Lord and Savior of your life, is a vital point. If you don't make that choice, the choice someday will be made for you. And that's the same thing with in the chess game that we learned about space grabbing. That if you don't make moves that stop your opponent from grabbing more and more space, you're going to end up having a position where you're smothered. And that just comes down to it. And eternity, my friends, is a long time. We can't even imagine how long eternity is, okay? So just make sure you think about receiving Lord Jesus, Lord and Savior of your life. And the point is, when I like what Tom Thumb said to Tango: treasure your victories, learn from your losses, remember that mistakes do not define who you are. It's how you handle the mistake that defines who you are as a chess player and a person in whatever field the Lord Jesus has called you into. And you know what? That's where the Team Chess Cruncher motto comes into play. Hanging up your coats, hanging up your hat, sitting down and studying when most won't. Team Chess Cruncher does, and that makes all the difference. And as Wesley So says, serve the Lord Jesus, as I say, God bless. And I'll see you next time on Chess Cruncher TV. Have a blessed morning, afternoon, or evening. And Lord willing, I'll be back on tomorrow, and we'll keep pushing forward. Remember what Hannibal Smith said. Even inside of a random position, there's always a plan, and we've seen it. Even inside what looks like a random position, there's a plan. And you just got to find it. And when you do and you implement it, you use the principles that we learned in How to Reassess Your Chess, 4th edition. You get to say, I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, 2 thumbs up, hoorah, be blessed. Keep studying, keep having fun. Remember, playing's good, but also study is important too. Okay, bye-bye, Team Chess Cruncher. Hoorah, I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye, team.